Hey there. Today we're going to take a look at what it means when the solutions to your quadratic equation are imaginary. Let's go. All right, so let's say we're asked to solve this equation. Okay, there's no middle term, so we're going to start by subtracting 64 from both sides. Next, we're going to divide 2 away from both sides. Next step, we're going to square root both sides. And everything's going along swimmingly. X squared, square root of that is x. Square root of this gets us a plus or minus, and here's where we run into the head scratcher. The square root of negative 32. Well, we all know that something times itself can never be a negative, hence imaginary numbers. Now, if this is the first moment you're encountering imaginary numbers, pause here, go take a look at this video, which is going to explain the concept of I a little bit more. But I'm going to proceed now, knowing that you understand the concept that I, the imaginary number, is defined as the square root of negative 1. So from here, I'm going to separate this. The square root of negative 1 times the square root of 32. And now I'm going to take a look at what's under my square root. Again, if you're not great at working with square roots, go check out this video, then come back. But I'm going to move on from here and say that when I factor 32, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's. And I put them all under my square root sign. And it's a square root, so that means 2 on the inside of the square root make for 1 on the outside. 2 on the inside make for another 1 on the outside. And notice I'm putting multiplication between these. And now I have this lone 2 inside, so that stays there. And 2 times 2 is 4. Now, as we established, I is the square root of negative 1. So that's plus or minus I times 4 root 2. And the way we would write that is plus or minus 4i times the square root of 2. And those are my two solutions, positive 4i root 2 and negative 4i root 2. Let's do it again. All right, and again, I'm asked to solve. Step 1, I'm going to subtract 49 from both sides. Next step, I'm going to square root both sides. Please don't forget, every time you square root, put a plus or minus in front of it. Next step, I'm going to go ahead and simplify this by separating it. I'm going to take each of these and write them in their simplest form. So square root of 49, that's 7. Square root of negative 1, that's I. Convention says I write that as 7i instead of I times 7, but it's the same thing. I'm going to not forget my plus and minus. And then my last step is I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. I'm going to put that 3 in front of all of this because convention says I write my complex number in the form a plus bi. So constant plus coefficient times I. Constant plus or minus coefficient times I. And those are my two solutions. Remember that solutions, roots, zeros, x-intercepts, these are all the same thing. If your x-intercept is imaginary, that means that this parabola never hits the x-axis. And if you think of this in vertex form, that makes sense. Our x-coordinate is -3. Our y-coordinate is 49. It's positive, so this thing opens up starting at a y of 49. This will never hit the x-axis. Same thing, if this question is asking you how many real roots do you have, the answer is none. You only have 2 imaginary roots. And the last way I'll geek out with you right now is that imaginary roots, because of this plus or minus thing, always come in pairs. So you can only ever have an even number of imaginary roots. Okay, think on all of that. Go check out my videos on I. Go check out my videos on working with square roots so you get ever more facile with that. Consider subscribing to my channel so you know when I put out a new video. And as always, keep on mathing.